Welcome back to the Star Spangled Beauty Quilt Along. We are on the week of May 26th. Today we're going to work on the horizontal and vertical lace stripes and the C to C blocks. I have all my fabric, batting, and embellishments prepped. I have the fusible backing on everything that needs it. I have the lace ribbons already cut for my horizontal and vertical lace stripes. For the horizontal and vertical lace stripes, I'll work through one of these in real time. This is a new technique for me, attaching the lace to the block. Then we'll work through the C to C block. This one's different. It has some sticky back, wash away, stabilizer, and a wash away stabilizer. There's some dimensional flowers. And in part B, it talks about using a fray preventative. Let's talk about that really quick. For the C to C block, it has you tacking down the blue fabric with the stars, that's the land fabric, and then applying a fray preventative, letting it dry, and then trimming. A fray preventative would be an item like this. This is called Fray Check by Dritz. I'm going to do something different rather than using the fray preventative. Here's what I did with my land fabric, and we'll see how my block comes out, and then you can decide if you like it or if you want to go ahead and do the step with the fray preventative. When I cut all my fabric during my fabric prep, everything had a light spray of this faultless heavy finish spray starch. I went ahead and starched it again, pressed it again, and I put the fusible backing on the back side of this fabric. I'm going to see how that looks rather than having no prep at all, no fusible backing, and using the fray preventative. I don't want to have to wait for this to dry after I stitch that tack down line. It's a raw edge applique. We'll see how this works. So this has 2 layers of starch and fusible backing. I did something similar with the Star Trio block. If you watch the video where I did this block, I put the fusible on the back of these, and these had 1 layer of starch. This has been double starched and has fusible. We're going to start with the horizontal lace stripe block. Go ahead and hoop your light mesh cutaway. Remember to hand tighten and screwdriver tighten. Let's load our files. We're going to start with the horizontal lace stripe design. Mine's on USB. I need to find the KDQ 409 stars 4x6 vertical design. Here's the 4x6s. If you look in your instructions, the vertical design shows all the hearts on the left pointing down and all the hearts on the right pointing up. So that's this one. Go ahead and drop that one in. I have to add my embroidery file. And I've done this a few times before. If I'm going too fast, go to an earlier version. I'm back to the embroidery file. I need to find my horizontal lace stripe design. There it is. I'm going to set that. You can see it's right on top of the background quilting. And we're ready to start. We'll do our batting placement, place our batting, tack it down, trim it, put down our fabric, tack that down, and do the quilting. I'll go ahead and move through all of that. Time lapse with music, we've done that before. And then we'll pick up when we start attaching our lace. The background quilting is done. Our next step is to stitch the lace placement lines. Make sure you switch your thread to the color indicated in the instructions. Let's stitch those out and start attaching our lace. We're going to start with the center piece of lace. That's this one. You need to find the center line and center your center lace on the center line. Lots of centering here. I'm going to go ahead and leave this on the machine. Lay that down as close to center as I can. You know me, I'm not overly concerned if it's a little bit wonky. It's a handmade item. We're going to place pieces 2 and 4 next. They're going to go on these lines. The instructions say to look for the cording row. That's this top piece right here, and that's going to line up along these lines here. This is going to be 2 and 4, the next 2 out, and you're going to point them towards the center like this on either side of the center lace that you just put down, and you're going to tape those into place. This will be my lace 2. Looking at that line right there, they call that the cording line, and center that over the white stitch line you just tacked down, or as close to center as you can. I'm going to tape that down, bring it along that line. I had to take this off my machine. It's really fiddly. I'm having a hard time taping these. I'm going to do the best I can. Once you've got 2 and 4 in place, you're going to do numbers 1 and then number 5. Everything does touch, at least on my block. And on this piece of lace, the cording is this section right here, not the very top edge, it's the straight edge. I'm going to tape those down. We'll see what they look like. I have an awful lot of tape on this. I really tried to get it straight. Some of the lace is a little bit wonky. I can't get it perfectly straight, so I'm going to go with this. Once everything is taped down, it says to cover the lace block with wash away topping and tape in place. This is the wash away embroidery topping. It kind of looks like plastic wrap. I cut my piece and I'm going to cover the entire block with this and tape it down. I've got it taped all the way around. It's a bit crinkly. If it's not flat, it's okay because you're going to wash this away. Now that everything's covered, we're going to stitch our lace tack down and basting lines. It says not to trim the lace. I'm not sure how you would. It's under all that tape and topping. After you stitch the tack down and basting lines, you're going to stitch the trimming guides. A quick observation. I watched it stitch this line. The lace moved. If you have it perfect and exactly where you want it, I think the only way to keep it from moving is to tape the whole thing, cover the entire thing with tape, and I don't know if you want to do that or use a spray base to hold it down, but it did shift a little bit as it stitched this tack down line. The last stitch is a couple of lines, one on each side. The trimming guides, it says to use a visible thread. I can see this pearl colored thread very easily against the pink background. I'm going to leave that thread in and stitch these lines. We're all stitched out. It says to remove it from the hoop and then remove the tape, tear away the topping, and any extra, wash it off. It says you can use a cotton swab. Let's get this out of the hoop. I went ahead and took the tape off that was around the outside. It makes a really loud noise on camera. This may make a loud noise as well. If it does, I'll mute it out or put music on it. It says to tear the wash away topping away, and then anything left you can get rid of with a swab, or you can run it under a faucet and then let your block to dry. I got everything off. The wash away topping, I found it to be easiest to get off by going like this and scratching it and getting it loose and then pulling it. The hardest part for me was getting all this tape off. In fact, I think I still have a little piece of tape right there. It gets stuck under the tack down lines and it's hard to pull out. See that? I need to clear out this little piece of tape and then this block will be good to go. I'll cut all the blocks at the end. But I didn't even need to wash away any of the wash away topping, which was nice. I went ahead and did this block off camera because the next block is going to take more time than these first two. This one went really well. It's nice and straight, as did this one, nice and straight. I don't know what happened here. This shifted and everything is off. Not enough to the point where I'm going to bother making another block. If you want these really straight, I wonder if it might be worth putting in a couple of hand stitches along the way, or maybe using a little bit of spray base underneath as you're laying down your lace and centering it and before you're taping it. Otherwise, I think what happened is when I put the wash away topping on top and I taped it, I think these may have shifted. I may have gone like this or flattened it or done something and they shifted, because you can see where they're taped on the ends and it kind of bows a little bit, so it probably got moved. It's probably user error. I think it'll look fine in the quilt. I'm going to leave it. we're going to go on to the next block. Next up is the C2C block. This has two parts. Part A is the dimensional lace flowers and part B is embroidering the block. For part A, making the flowers, we're going to need sticky back wash away and also the wash away topping. Also of note, you're going to need matching bobbin thread for these. We're making these little lace flowers, so you want your bobbin thread to match so your flowers are all one color. This is the wash away sticky back stabilizer. If you've never worked with this before, it feels like paper. You'll notice one side feels like fabric and the other side is like a wax paper. When you put this in your hoop, this glossy paper side is going to be up facing you. Cut a piece larger than your hoop. When you go to hoop this, make sure your hoop is really loose. It's a little thick because of the paper, and it can be difficult to push your center hoop piece down into the outside frame. I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera because it makes a lot of noise because of the crinkly paper. I've got it pushed down. If you find when you're trying to push down the center piece, it keeps popping out, you need to loosen your hoop more. You're going to want to tighten by hand and then tighten with your screwdriver. Before I show you how to peel this paper off, get a piece of your wash away topping ready, because once you peel this off, it's sticky and we're going to stick this other product on top of it. I have this piece coming off the roll here. The flowers are small. I don't need to cover the whole thing. I looked at the embroidery file already. This little piece should be enough. I'm going to cut off this piece and then we'll peel the paper and we'll stick it down. What you want to do is scratch the paper with something. These are my scissors that I use to cut sticky things. And then peel the paper layer off. Lightly scratch it and you should be able to pick it and peel it up. Now you have the sticky part exposed. It says to take your wash away topping and place that on top. It says to press it down. If it's got wrinkles, don't worry about it. All of this stuff washes away. It will completely disappear. Get your threads ready and make sure your thread colors have a matching bobbin color, and we're going to head over to our machine. I'm at my machine, which is a Baby Lock Meridian. My files are on USB. I pulled out my white bobbin and I took off my colored thread. I'm not sure which thread it's going to want first. I'm going to hit the embroidery button, my USB button, Star Spangled Beauty's right here. I need the embroidery file, and then I need to find the flowers. They're actually right here on top. I'm going to hit my set button. I don't have to add anything additional to that. I'm going to hit the embroidery button. The first flower to load, this one here on the left, uses the sea green color. Load your sea green thread and your sea green bobbin thread, and we're going to stitch that out. This is going to stitch right on top of that stabilizer. Looks like my thread broke. If that happens to you, just take a minute, rethread, back up a couple of stitches, and keep going. These are both stitched out. I want to go ahead and get this out of the hoop and then trim around each flower and be careful not to cut the stitching. I have a rotary cutter I use to cut sticky things. I'm going to carefully cut this out. Now that I have them separated, I'm going to take my sticky thing scissor and I'm going to cut a little bit closer around each flower. The next thing we want to do, according to the instructions, is to lay these flat in cool water for 15 to 20 seconds, then lay flat to dry. I got a bowl with cool water. I'm going to go ahead and put them in. I have my phone next to me so I can hit the stopwatch button. I waited about 25 seconds. I could see the stabilizer's still there. I've worked with this before. I know if you kind of gently rub it, see it gets gooey, it'll pull off. So if yours isn't dissolving, just very gently get in there, clean it off. I'm going to let that soak a little more. I'm going to work on this one. Once all of the gooey yuck comes off, go ahead and lay them flat to dry. If you're having trouble getting the stabilizer out from between the little holes, I grabbed a Kleenex and got it wet and just sort of gently squished it, and that helps get the stabilizer out from between the holes. Here's the other one. I had a few threads I had to trim off. This was the one I did first that had the thread break. I think I've got all the stabilizer off. I'm going to give it one last swish and lay it down next to this other one on the paper towel so they can dry. Make sure they're laying down nice and flat. We're ready to start the C to C block. My machine wanted the biggest hoop. This is a 9.5 by 14. I loaded the background quilting and I tried a smaller size hoop and it said no. So I'm using a really big hoop for this one. We're going to start by loading our files. It's on my USB again. I am doing the background quilting, so we need to load that one first. I'm looking for KDQ 407 8 by 10. KDQ 407, and then we have to find the 8 by 10. Here it is. Once that's up, I hit the set button, and then I hit the add button. We'll go back to our USB, pull our Star Spangled Beauty designs, and then pull the embroidery files, and we need the C to C block. This one. I'm going to set that. It centers automatically on my machine. I'm ready to go. I'm going to hit the embroidery button. The first thing we're going to do is stitch the batting placement line, then the batting tack down line. We'll trim our batting, we'll do our fabric, we'll do our quilting. You've seen all this before. I'll go ahead and set it to music. Let's get going. I'm going to pause here to talk about the land fabric again in case anybody doesn't watch the beginning. When you get to this point, following the instructions, it has you do the tack down and then put a fray preventative on the fabric and letting it dry before you do your applique trimming. I starched this when I did the original fabric prep in the beginning. And then I went ahead and starched it a second time with Faultless Heavy Spray Starch. It almost has a papery feel. It's really starched. And I added fusible backing, which you do not have to do. I did this because I don't want to have to go around with the fray preventative and put it on the line and wait for it to dry and then do my trimming. I'm going to try this and see what it looks like. I did a similar thing with the Star Trio block, and it came out fine. Let's see what happens. I want to be extra careful and make sure my fabric covers everything completely, so I loosened it and pulled it down. I've got to tell you, I'm looking at some of these little tiny cutouts. Wow, that's detailed. If you've got a scan and cut and you know how to use it, this might be the block to use it. I have one, but I don't know how to use it. One of these days I'll figure it out. I'm going to make sure my fabric covers everything completely. And I'm going to tape it down. I don't want it to shift. And then we'll stitch that tack down line. I'm going to pause right here. I don't know if you can see this, but it looks like some of the white from either the background fabric or probably the fusible backing is popping up through this piece. I'm going to go ahead and put a new needle on just in case, and then I'll continue stitching. Let's get a look at this. This is before I changed the needle. See the little tiny bits of white? After I changed the needle, I still have a few here and there. It does look better. I probably should have changed my needle before I started. Overall, for me, that is fine. If you don't want that to happen, don't do what I did. My guess is the fusible backing is popping up through, but again, I really don't want to have to stop right now, put the fray check on all the squiggly, wait for it to dry, and I'm honestly also afraid of it bleeding through the dark fabric on the white. That's why I tried doing the double starching and the fusible on the back. If you have a dark fusible, like a navy fusible or a black fusible, you're not going to have that problem. That's another thought. I didn't even think of that. I'm going to go ahead and pull this off the hoop and trim it off camera. This is going to take a lot of twisting and turning really quick. I started here. I'm going this way. I've been at it for about 8 minutes. That's as far as I've got. This took me 10 minutes. That took me about 7 minutes. There's a little piece right in here. I can't get that little tiny bit out, so I gave Alaska some extra square footage. I'm going to run a lint brush over this and we'll go on to the next step. Before we go back to the machine, I'm going to get nice and close with this. You can get a close-up and decide If you want to work with the fray preventative, or if you want to starch and put fusible backing on your fabric. This is raw edge applique. That means there'll be no more stitching around this piece. There's no satin stitch or detail stitch. That's it. This is what it's going to look like. You can see there's some fuzzies. Again, I'm getting really close with the camera here so you can have a look. Most people are not going to stand that close to your quilt. They'll probably be at least that far away. I am perfectly fine with the way this turned out. I think it looks really good. I'm happy with it, but your call. The instructions call for using the fray preventative. If you want to be doubly sure it looks perfect, I would follow that. Otherwise, if you're okay with a little bit of fuzzy, this method worked pretty well. I'm pretty happy with it. Let's go on to the next step. Our next step after everything is trimmed is stitching the island fills. Then we have a thread change. You're going to do the stems and leaves. Then we have some flower applique. There's thread changes in there. And there's more outlines and applique. I'm going to record all that and set it time-lapse to music. And then I'll slow down when we get to the point where we're going to attach our little flowers. I don't know if you can see this, but it looks like I had a problem with thread shredding. Of course, I turned my back for a minute and I came back and realized something was wrong. I rethreaded. I'll have to back up my machine, figure out what didn't stitch out, and then restitch that portion. We've reached the part where we're going to attach our lace flowers. They're calling the little one Lace Flower 3 and the bigger one Lace Flower 4. We're going to start by stitching the Lace Flower 3 placement line. I stitched a tiny little circle line, and it tells you to center your flower on it, and it shows the tape along the top and the bottom. I'm going to try and do that. Once you've got your flower over the placement line, tape it in place, and then it says to stitch the lace flower center fill and remove the tape. Once you've got that center fill, go ahead and remove your tape, and then you're going to stitch the placement line for the next flower. This is also in the color Cobalt. The same thing, it stitched a real tiny circle. It's kind of half on, half off the fabric. Probably can't even see it. And I'm going to tape the bottom. And this is the last step, stitching the fill for this flower. That was the last step. I'm going to take the tape off. I did not do a good job centering that flower. It looks a little bit wonky. You'll see that when I bring it over to the cutting table. Let's look at it right here really quick before I pull my project off the hoop. I'm going to go with it. I'm fine with it. If you've watched my videos before, you know I'm not a super uber perfectionist. Let's get this over to the table and out of the hoop and do our trimming with our orange pop rulers. It's time to trim our blocks. I'm going to use the orange pop rulers to trim our horizontal lace stripe block. We need our 4.5 by 6.5. That's the smallest rectangle. You want to go ahead and line it up. There's the little notches. You can line up these little arrows on the orange pop ruler with those trimming guides that you stitched down. Putting the larger ruler around it gives me more surface area, place for my hand. I want to make sure I've got everything centered, everything looks good, and then we'll go ahead and trim this. When you center this, line up those little arrows on your ruler with those trimming guides. You'll notice the tack down line for the lace is inside where you're going to trim. That's going to keep that lace down until we have a chance to sew this into the quilt. Go ahead and get a rotary cutter. Change your blade if you haven't done that in a while. When you use the orange pop rulers, make sure you slide all the way to the left and go ahead and trim your block. You'll have that lace tack down line on either side, and I can still see the trimming guide. When we sew this in, when you come 1/4 of an inch in, all of that will get taken up in your seam allowance. Our vertical lace stripes block uses the 4.5-inch square, and then I put the next largest ruler on the outside to help me hold everything down. Same procedure as the last block. Let's get a look at this one. Remember how I told you the lace shifted? See how it kind of bumps up and curves down? You can see that that's crooked. And this one kind of bumped around too, it looks like. Once this is in the quilt and mixed in with all the other blocks, it's going to look beautiful. I'm not worried about it at all. If yours comes out kind of wonky and you're really unhappy about it, you can pick it apart and redo it. But for me, again, it's a handmade product. It's not going to be perfect. That's part of the charm of making your crafts yourself. It makes it original. Nobody else will have a block just like this. Your C2C block uses the biggest rectangle orange pop ruler, which is 8.5 by 10.5. My cutting mat is round. This is an Omni Grid mat. Kimberbell makes a bigger one that fits the orange pop rulers. I need to make sure that I'm not going to run off the edge on all these little cutouts. I've had this mat for a long time. If I was just now investing in a rotating cutting mat, I'd probably buy the Kimberbell one because this is what I use it for. Let's trim this last block. Take a little extra time holding this down. If you want, you could get something to set on the side, hold it down. I have a bottle of water. That'll help. Gives that a little bit of extra security. That came out really nice. The dimensional flowers add that little bit of something extra to it. Really gives it something to make this block stand out. Again, I talked about using the anti-fray, and what I did instead, there are some fuzzies on mine. This doesn't bother me. It's a raw edge applique. I think it turned out great. I'm very happy with it. Let's take a final look at everything and talk about what we're going to do next week. We just finished our horizontal and vertical lace stripes and the C2C block. Next week, we'll work on the ribbons block and piece filler blocks 1 and 2. We're halfway through this quilt. If you just got your supplies and you're joining us, now is a perfect time to jump in. These blocks don't look too difficult. Take your time, work on these. The videos will stay up on YouTube. I'm not pulling them down when this is done. They'll stay there so you can work on this anytime. I'm going to put my blocks back in their plastic bags and put them on the pile of completed blocks. Thank you so much for quilting along with me. I'll see you next time.